Hey guys, it's Dean, and welcome to the Better Man podcast. Today's episode is a member interview. We're going to be talking with Matt, who is still a giant and a former big guy who lost a ton of weight with a combination of walking, running, and nutrition improvement. He's been doing that since 2014. He found Manful Yoga a couple years ago to fix his back and his knee pain. And even though he's 44 years old, he's continuing to push his fitness and take it to new heights. Some of the themes that we cover in this episode, we talk about weight loss. We talk about how you don't have to identify as an athlete or as a runner to do those things. We talk about gym intimidation. And Matt, in particular, talks about how he relied on himself rather than relying on other people and how personal accountability really helped him to reach his goals. I hope you enjoy this episode. There's a ton of great pieces of information, of inspiration in here to take away and apply to yourself. And I hope it inspires you to be a better man. Hey guys, it's Dean. Welcome back to the Better Man podcast. Today I've got Matt A here to talk about his health and wellness journey. So Matt, thanks for coming.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be on.
Yeah. So this is we started doing these episodes last season, and the focus here is to kind of talk about what inspired you to start making significant changes to your health and wellness, and then kind of take people through, what allowed you to be consistent, what results did you notice, what was your motivation, what did you realize was important to you, and how did that inspire you to do your workouts when you didn't want to,
hmm
and then what does that led into in your overall health and wellness kind of practices now. So first off, it's that oh shit moment, right? So what was the big oh shit moment for you? When did you realize it was time to make a change?
Well, I used to travel for work a lot, and I used to eat a lot on the road and a lot of really good food. And I'm a big guy already, and I'm about
Yeah,
six
you're
foot
a
eight.
you're a fellow giant. Jesse
Yep.
was kind of I think Jesse was kind of jealous when he heard that you were going to be on the podcast. Our community manager, he's like, another giant, but I'm the giant.
Yeah, I've talked to Jesse several times. He's a good guy, and I think there's one or two taller in the group, but there's definitely a few tall people. But yeah, so I'm about 6 foot eight. I think at my heaviest, I got to be about 275 or so. And at one point, I had a hard time fitting in airplane seats without a extension belt, and I
Mm,
kind of said, "Well, that's not going to work. I need to, something has to change." And so I started walking a little bit. I started cutting back on what I was eating. Interestingly enough, the Subway diet was a thing at the time where you walk to Subway, get a reasonably healthy sandwich. My nearest Subway is about 3/4 of a mile away. The first time I decided to walk there to get a sandwich, I made sure my wife was around to come pick me up if I needed it,
yeah.
and that I had my cell phone because I was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to actually make it there and back without having any problems. And that was also kind of an eye opening experience. So I
How
definitely
old were
started.
you at that point?
I was probably about 32, 33, somewhere in that
Okay.
range. And so I definitely started realizing something needed change, started walking a lot more, kind of started jogging, started getting into running, started doing some 5Ks here and there. I think the first 5K I ever did was back in 2012. And it was kind of a run walk thing, but I was
Hmm.
definitely, real excited to finish it. And then I kind of got swept up in the running thing and started running more and
Hmm.
also cycling. The 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 obvious benefit was that I lost weight. I lost a fair amount of weight. I think I lost that first year, dropped somewhere around 50 pounds,
Wow.
and kind of got back to healthy. And then as I was
Yeah.
running more, started getting into longer distances. I signed up with a work team to do the Walt Disney World marathon, which was seemed a little crazy at the time, and that was my first marathon, which was in 2014.
Hmm.
Um, so I definitely have been doing a lot of running. One of my goals has been to do a half marathon, or century bike ride in all 50 states, and I'm up to 30,
Wow.
32 now. I have one next weekend that's going to be 30. Sorry, that's going to be 32. So I'm getting close to two-thirds of the way done. My goal is to hit it by the time I'm 50. I'm 44 now, so I've got several years left to hit the remaining states, and hopefully I can get them all crossed off, and then work on repeating a few states after that, I guess. So,
Wow. Okay. That's awesome. So, like, tell me about kind of that first year. You mentioned the Subway diet. You started with walking. What were those first kind of few months of change like for you?
Well, my work actually had a Biggest Loser contest going on, which helped because I was able to get a little bit of extra motivation from a team. At the time, yoga was definitely not anywhere in the vicinity. I hadn't really started to have any back pain issues or anything. Those kind of came along as part of the process. As I was running more, I started developing knee pain. Ended up going to a physical therapist for that. Started having lower back pain that would strike, unexpectedly. Usually about 2 to 3 times a year. Usually I'd end up in urgent care.
Oh, wow.
Muscle relaxers. I ended up in the ER once because it was just so bad I couldn't tolerate it. And usually it would sideline me for, a week or two where I'd be kind of stuck in the recliner. Usually it wasn't doing anything cool. Like it wasn't like, saving a baby from a burning building or anything like that. It
Right.
was like moving an empty box from one shelf to another shelf or,
Yeah.
taking out the trash or something like that. And I would tweak it just right.
Yeah.
So went
Like
to
I
physical
just
therapy for my
I
back and yeah.
I washed that one part of my back, and then then I was out for a week.
Yeah, one time I
So
sneezed funny, that's all it took.
yeah.
Um, and so I started going to physical therapy for my back, started doing that a few times, but it would come and go. Most of the physical therapist recommendation was to work on the core because
Yeah.
they said, the back is really probably not your problem, it's the symptom.
Hmm.
But it's your tight hamstrings, it's your tight everything that you have going on,
Hmm.
and the back just happens to be the really weak spot. And so I started working on my core a little bit. I think like a lot of people, I probably started looking for stretches that I could be doing outside of physical therapy.
Hmm.
I don't recall if I actually searched yoga for men, but I probably did at some point, and started seeing some ads for the strength challenge, and I was like, oh, that sounds great.
Okay.
I would definitely be interested in doing that. And then I think I did the intro, strength challenge. Went through a few episodes of it, and I think by the first or second episode, I was like, yeah, this is totally the right fit for me.
Nice.
I had done a few yoga classes in person, but I was always very uncomfortable, very I don't want to say intimidated, but definitely, I was a beginner, and most of the
Mhm.
classes were geared towards women, but they were also geared to people who actually knew what they were doing. And
Yeah.
so, they would say, okay, let's get into this pose or that pose. And I would kind of have to look around to see
Right.
what other people were doing. I didn't know what muscles to be engaging.
Yeah.
Your explanations of things are awesome. It's like, okay, you should be feeling this at this point. If you're not, do this to make it a little more significant. Or if your back's hurting, ease up on this.
Mm.
All the different adjustments that you recommend as part of the videos, they're amazing. And
Thank you.
I'm happy to report that ever since I started yoga, I have not had an instance of back pain or knee pain uh, to
Wow.
come back, and that's been about a year and a half, 2 years now. So
Okay.
I can definitely say that it's made a big difference in the overall journey for me.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad that Strength Foundations got you started, and then you stayed. I like how you mentioned the physical therapy. I think a lot of people, especially when they're getting started with exercise, and I think in general, like if you exercise at one point or another, you're going to run into your limits. You're going to have like something like you experienced, right? The knee's going to start hurting, or the back starts going to start hurting, your shoulder's going to start hurting, and you're like, well, I've never had knee pain before. What happened? You're like, well, you're exercising now. So,
Hmm.
you're finding your weaknesses. And my wife's a physical therapist. So I'm a huge fan of physical therapy. I was actually thinking about this today. I get a lot of people, in our community asking for specific advice on something, right? Maybe it's on, I don't know, they're like, I've got, knee pain, or maybe it's like, I've got a ton of hip tightness, or maybe it's like back pain. And for me, the solution isn't always to do yoga. I'm like, you should probably go see a physical therapist, a
Hmm.
lot of these times. If it sounds like it's something that's I guess my barometer for it is if it's something that's been persistent and it hasn't gone away for a long time, and you've been doing yoga for a while, or you've been doing the kinds of exercises that I would recommend. At some point, I'm going to recommend like, okay, like, you've tried just kind of the basic strengthening and mobility exercises, but I think it would be helpful for you to go to a physical therapist because they're going to give you the most efficient route to getting out of pain. Their goal is to sit down with the patient and figure out, how do I get this person discharged as quickly as possible?
Yeah.
And so they're going to figure out the most efficient ways to, target whatever the injury is. So the downside of that is, it's great when you see a physical therapist because you go and see them and they give you homework. And whether or not you do the homework is one thing, but at least because you're going there multiple times per week, you're they're making you do the exercises, right? But then you stop and you're like, oh, I'm good, right?
Hmm.
And you go a few months and you like, oh, I'm good. I don't need the physical therapy anymore. And then the back pain comes back, and you're like, oh crap, now it's back again. So the struggle is trying to um, the struggle here is trying to do those corrective exercises that are going to help you stay out of pain, but figuring out a way that allows you to be consistent and do them regularly. And I think that's one reason why manful yoga is so great. It's because it does all of those exercises that you should be doing but might otherwise not be doing on your own.
Yeah. And a lot of the stuff I do in man flow yoga is actually very close to what I was doing in physical therapy to some degree. There's some different stretches and things, but a lot of it was exactly the same stretches, same routines that I was doing. Except obviously, when you're going to a physical therapist, you're paying X amount of dollars per session. Sometimes insurance helps and sometimes it doesn't, but it was still expensive. But you also have to take time off work to go when it works for them.
Right.
Whereas with Manflow Yoga, I mean, most of the time when I'm doing it, it's 5 o'clock in the morning or it's 8 o'clock at night. It's before work. It's right after I wake up. I don't have to dress up for the occasion. I do it in the basement. Um, I don't have to worry about what other people are thinking about me or anything like that. I can just follow along. It's all geared, exactly for what I need. So for that,
Yeah.
it's two big thumbs up.
Was that a relatively new concept for you, like the idea that, oh, I could do the workouts like on a TV instead of going to the gym or going somewhere for it?
Well, before I got started with the yoga, I was doing. You can see behind me. I've got kind of. I call it the mat cave. It's where I do a
Yes.
lot of my. I have a bike down here. I have a treadmill. I actually interact with a program called Zwift. You may have heard of. It's kind of like a virtual reality world where you can be biking and running, but it's really just biking and
Ooh.
running. It's not like yoga or anything like that. And of course, now that I've been doing man flow yoga, there's also other uh, options for yoga that I've been exposed to, but I always keep coming back to man flow yoga. So
Hmm. What do you think you come back for? What is it that brings you back to this?
Definitely the explanations throughout the process are very good.
Hmm.
I've done some on Apple Fitness where it's maybe a 30-minute yoga, but they don't really tell you what you're looking at ahead of time. It's like, hey, it's a yoga session with Jake, or it's a yoga session with whoever
Hmm.
it happens to be. But it doesn't say like, okay, this is going to be for your legs, or this is for your shoulders, or this is going to be a light intensity day. This is going to be a real heavy day. With Manflow, there's so many videos out there. You can really pick and choose. You can pick a program if that's what you need to help stay motivated. But
Hmm.
a lot of times, what I do is, hey, today I think I need to work on my, um, I need to work on my shoulders, and I have 20 minutes, and I don't want to do anything super intense. And you can narrow down the results to like something that's shoulder centric,
Hmm.
around 20 minutes. And it's really great. You can just get exactly what you need that day, or you can follow a program. I've followed a program. I don't know that aside from the strength foundations, I don't think I've ever actually followed one start to finish because I start and then I get caught up in something else, and then I start watching different videos for some other different purpose. So I've never
Okay.
stopped doing the yoga. I just haven't stayed consistent with any program,
Yeah.
but that's part of the nobody's scolding me for it, and it
Right.
works for what I need at that time.
Yeah. It's yeah. That'd be an extra part of the membership if you wanted me to yell at you via send you a video, track your workouts, see that you're not following a program, and then send you send you a video of me yelling at you for.
Yeah.
But like actually, I like that you bring this up because I find that there are two types of people who are consistent in manful yoga. In particular, there's the people who follow programs because it makes it really easy. Like, okay, I don't have to think about which workout I'm going to do. Right, I just follow the program. Maybe I sign up for the accountability emails. Maybe I schedule out my workouts in advance, and then like you're good. You don't have to think about which workout is next. And then for some people like you, they're comfortable getting into the workout library, doing searches, and then just picking what they need on based on that day, and that works really well. I think some people just struggle with the decision paralysis,
Hmm.
this aspect of it, and some people are good at it. So what do you think, is there something in particular that you think allowed you to use that technique that you use, right, to just kind of find what you need day by day?
I think just the motivation of knowing that I'm probably going to get out of it what I need for it that day,
Okay.
and I'm probably going to feel better once I'm done. Sometimes I pick out the workout like the day ahead of time. So like, okay, tomorrow I should really do this one. And sometimes I just sit in front of the TV for a couple of minutes while I'm getting ready. And oh yeah, this one looks good. Sometimes I realize that it was a good fit. Sometimes it wasn't, but I don't think I've ever had a bad session or one that I finished and went, oh man, I really shouldn't have wasted my time on that. That was pointless.
Mm,
There's always something to gain. The Better Day series, some of the other ones that are, not super intense, but really good for just starting your day off and getting a good stretch, definitely improve my day. And I'm to the point now where I'm doing the yoga usually about 3 to 4 times a week. I swim once or twice a week. I ride my
mm.
bike at least once or twice a week. I usually try to run 2 or 3 times a week, just depending on my schedule and what everything allows. But I definitely have noticed that if I'm not doing yoga for a couple days at a time, I start to feel it. I start to stiffen up. And a lot of times my wife will even just say, hey, you haven't done yoga in a couple days, have you? And I'm like, no, and get back down to your cave and do it,
Yeah.
Because
Does she notice like a non-physical, like do you notice your mood change when you don't do
I
that,
don't know if
or?
it's a mood thing. I think it's more like groaning when I stand up or, having
Okay,
trouble putting my shoes on,
so
things like that. So,
she's just annoyed by your complaining. Then she's like, stop complaining, go do your.
yeah, but there's probably some emotional aspect to it as well. I don't like to use some of the terms that yogis might use, but feeling calmer, the breathing,
Yeah,
um, quote unquote centered,
yeah,
just it definitely makes a difference for sure.
yeah, yeah. So, I'm thinking like, so go back to your pre Subway diet walking habit and look at where you are now. And I'm always intrigued by this idea of like, is that who you were the whole time and it was just buried beneath other stuff? Or do you think that you changed over time and that, you're a different person than you were?
I definitely think there's two mats involved and I think there was the lazy mat and there's the new mat. And I'm definitely not like a fitness, I even hesitate to say that I'm a runner, even though I've run,
You
50
are.
half marathons and, 7 marathons or whatever. Because I always think of the runners as the ones that are, going really fast and wearing the short little shorts and and I'm just out there having a good time. I've
Yeah.
never aimed to like beat anyone, but it's definitely it's a different me for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I there's a really common theme in our community is like these people who, they're like, I'm not an athlete, or like I'm not a runner. And you look at what they do like on a weekly basis. I'm like, you run 5 times a week and you lift 3 times a week. What are you if not a runner?
Right.
Because those are these are, I don't know. Did you play sports growing up?
I never did. So in fact, so I'm 6'8" now. When I was growing up, I was actually through middle school. I was one of the shorter kids in class, and then about 14 or 15, I hit my growth spurt, and I had a condition with my joints where I was not really able to run much or even walk, and going upstairs and things like that was actually painful. So
Mm.
It was definitely, like if you took a short person and put them in a tall person's body, they would not do well. They would be tripping over themselves. They would be, falling all over. And that's what I was doing. So
Mm.
for most of high school. And so, at one point I was 6'8" and about 150 pounds, which, if you can, like, I
Oh my
could touch
gosh.
my spine through my stomach. Like it was, and it wasn't for lack of trying. I mean, I was at the
Whoa.
buffets, I was at the, all you can eat places all the time, but it was just all of it was into making me go up.
Wow.
And so there was a lot of growing pains and so forth out of that. So it was definitely an adjustment uh,
Wow.
to my body, I guess. And so, yeah, I never played sports and I never really cared for team sports. And that's why I still don't really do any. I hate other people being dependent on me and I hate being dependent on other people. So if
Okay.
I go out and do a half marathon one day and I totally suck it up, it's awful. I step in a pothole and I can't get it right or whatever, that's on me. But if I mess up someone else's day, then I'm going to feel really bad about it. So
Mm.
that's why I've stuck mostly with running and cycling, because you know it's all about me. If I do great, great. If I don't, it's on me. So
Yeah. I hear that. Well, I'm not going to peel back the layer on that right now, but that's definitely worth exploring. Um, but I really want to go back to kind of like, I appreciate you mentioning how manful yoga has been helpful. And hopefully it's helpful to other people who are trying to figure out how to make it work for them. And I also want to go back to when you were first making these changes, because I think that's the hardest part is when you first start making those changes. It's before you notice, it's before you notice the changes. It's before you notice the results,
hmm
right? And so you're kind of like, oh, well, I could walk, but it's really hard. I think I'm just going to stay home. And I'm curious for you, like, what was it that motivated you in those first few months to start making those changes and stick with them?
Yeah, I think definitely the motivation of just like kind of the oh shit moment of I can't fit in the plane on a seat, and the
Mm,
motivation of the Biggest Loser contest we had at work,
yeah.
being accountable to other people seeing the results, and I was bringing ideas to the group and saying, hey, if you do this, it might help, and sharing recipes and things like that, and I think that's a lot of where it came from, but
Hmm.
the motivation to keep going. I mean, no one is telling me you have to keep running. I'm to the point now where if I stop running or if I stop cycling or if I stop working out at all, or I stop doing yoga, it definitely affects me in a negative way, to the point where, like, okay, I really need to get back on track, because now I don't want to say sad or depressed or anything like that. I'm just not who I am.
Yeah.
I don't have that other part of me that makes up, who I am as an entire person.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, yeah, I think, something that strikes me is people who look at people who are not who don't work out regularly, and they look at people who work out regularly, and and I think their mentality of working out is a chore, right? And
hmm
they think of it as a chore. They think of it as work. And the people who have worked out consistently enough to realize the not just the long-term benefits, but the short-term kind of immediate benefits, like the improved mood, the feeling of satisfaction with yourself, feeling better physically a lot of the times, right? Depending on the workout. And you start to crave those immediate benefits. And
hmm
I think that's something that people who don't really enjoy exercise haven't been able to experience is those immediate benefits. They haven't done them enough where they're like, oh yeah, like if I work out, I'll feel that. So they actually look forward to the workout.
Yeah. Well, and I'm 44 now, so I'm not old, but I'm not young either, and I'm kind of in the middle. And there's a quote from the book Born to Run, where he says, you don't grow old and stop running. You stop running and you grow old.
Mm.
And in fact, as I've been running for 10 years now, and I'm only getting faster.
Hmm.
I've not slowed down. In fact, I think I just did a half marathon a couple weeks ago, faster than I've ever done one by, several minutes. And
Wow.
at one point, I was posting on Facebook about how I was kind of disappointed in one of my half marathon results, and because I hadn't met the goal that I was looking towards. And a friend commented, "Well, you're getting old." And I said, "Well, that's not an excuse for anything. I'm still setting personal records all the time. I mean, I'm last year I biked more than I ever had in a year. I ran more, and I'm continually getting faster." And so it's a little different than like a lot of my friends. I have a friend who's a professional Ironman athlete, and he did his peaking, I guess, earlier, and now he's starting to get slower and it's starting to affect him. But for me, I'm only getting better.
Mm,
And I'm still slow by a lot of comparisons, but I'm faster than I was yesterday. So,
hmm.
you know, can't beat that.
Yeah. So what do you attribute that to? What do you like? What combination of exercise, or I mean, do you do recovery stuff too? I mean, like what all goes into that?
Well, I think a lot of it is before I may have just been going through the motions. I think in the last few years with yoga and with, a lot of the emphasis on doing not necessarily bodybuilding, but I get into the gym certainly a lot more than I did last year. I think I went to the gym, 50 or 60 times or something like that, where the year before it was like two.
Mm,
And the gym has always been kind of an intimidating place for me, like I think it is for a lot of guys, where you see everyone else and you compare yourself to them and you're like, man, those guys are benching 200 pounds and I'm over here with my 70 pounds. Like, what's going on? This isn't, I'm not right for this place. And
mm,
in some cases you actually not physically intimidated, but you definitely look around and you're like, I do not belong here.
hmm.
But in the last year or two, I think I finally said, I need to do this. This will help me improve. um, I belong there as much as anyone, so get out of my way. I'm going to do this. So,
Yeah. Well, not many people are going to argue with a giant saying, "I need that dumbbell move."
well, when they see my muscles, they're like, he's no threat. He's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. I mean, so like the gym intimidation thing I think is very common, and um I guess I'm just trying to think back like to my own experience. I started lifting when I was a freshman in high school, and I think I was just so small that like I had like I was like I don't know. I guess I was just so small that it was just like what do I have to lose? Like I was the shortest and I was the smallest. I was always very like wiry, very muscly, and like relatively strong for my size. But like if you put me up against the average ninth grader, I don't think I would have. They might have thought of like Dean. He's that crazy short, strong kid. But like I don't know if they would have thought like, oh yeah, I think he's really gonna take me down. So like I guess for me, um, it was always like, well, yeah, I'm tiny. Like, what do I have to prove here? Like, and then I think I remember showing up in the gym like as a sophomore and somebody said, um, you're swole. I was like, what? He's like, you're swole. You look strong. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I remember like being in math class. This is ridiculous. I remember being in math class in 10th grade, and I just remember like looking at my arms. I'm like, look at these muscles. And just sit there, just like looking at my biceps, like, oh, look, it does this. And I could do that thing with my pec, right? Where you can like flex your pec for the first time.
Yeah, I definitely did not
Um,
have any of those issues.
but walk me through your getting over the gym intimidation thing. Cause I think that's a big struggle for people. Like, what was the process or what were the thoughts?
Um, well, I go to a gym that, everyone's heard of it. I mean, it's Planet Fitness, which is supposed to be a judgment-free zone, and there's definitely still some
Yes.
judgment or whatever that goes on. I think a lot of it is just getting my butt in there. There's never been anyone that's, you know, physically intimidated. It's more the fear that I'm not doing things right, or that someone's looking at me and laughing, or something like that. And
Mm,
I think at some point you just have to, I watched a lot of videos online. I wanted to make sure I was doing things right. The yoga certainly helped. And I finally felt like, okay, now I'm at least confident in what I'm doing in there. And if other people are, I'm past the point of really caring what most people think about me. I mean, someone videoed me. In fact, my physical therapist videoed me running on a treadmill as part of my physical therapy, and I was like, "Man, that's how come no one told me I really look goofy when I run?" Um, until you actually watch yourself do it. But at the same time, it's like, well, that's how I run. So
mhm.
if I don't run like everyone else, so be it. there's the Phoebe run from Friends where she's flailing her arms, and I'm not that bad. But you look at any 6'8" person running, and it's probably going to look a little different than a normal person. So not
Yeah.
only that, but I stand out a lot more than everyone else. So when I'm standing in the waiting area, or whatever you call it, the holding zones, I'm always the tallest, if not one of the tallest. And so, everyone's, hey, can you take a picture while you're up there? Hey, if I had legs as long as yours, I'd be able to finish this thing in like 10 steps. And, so I get noticed whether I like it or not. I
Yeah.
can't shrink. I can't hide.
Hmm.
So at some point you just have to say, well, this is who I am. And if other people don't like it, then it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that works. That's your process. So like and the other thing I want to talk about was the your biggest loser contest, because that sounds like it was incredibly helpful. And I think that those other community environments can be super helpful. So can you talk about how those were helpful for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the time I was working in an office, and we had, 15, 20 people, and it was optional. You could do it or not. Nobody was requiring it, but there was little prizes along the ways. And every week we'd have a weigh in it, and didn't care what you weighed. They cared what a difference of your weight from the previous week was. So
Mm,
only one person in the contest actually knew our weights. But they knew what you were dropping percentage wise. And so every week there would be hey, Matt dropped 1.5% this last week. That's insane.
mm,
And other people would be dropping or not dropping, or some people would gain from time to time. And so it was definitely a motivation, like, well, should I eat this week? Well, I don't want to have a bad way, and I don't want people to know that I didn't do well this week. So it definitely helped keep me on track. I think there's
hmm.
some similar apps and things like that where you can kind of compare. I try not to see things as a competition, but uh, it definitely helps to have a little bit of accountability and know that other people are looking at you, if not to judge, if for motivation.
Hmm. What were
Um,
some of the little tweaks you made for diet? Like when you were hungry and you said, "No, I'm not gonna eat that because I don't want to get a bad weigh-in." Did you eat something else, or did you drink some water, or what were some things you did?
I think I just definitely started cutting down on what I was eating. So, at the time I was traveling a lot. And so it wouldn't be uncommon for me to go out, have a really big steak with the potatoes, with the sides, and also get an appetizer and get
Hmm.
a piece of cheesecake because work was paying for the bills. So it didn't really matter. And, I liked it.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it was, for a while on my work trips, I became kind of a dud because it was like, hey, do you want to go out with us to Mexican tonight? I was like, no, I think I'm just gonna, um, go have a little sandwich, or something like that instead. And it definitely wasn't as exciting, but it was definitely a lot better for me. And definitely the food was the major problem.
Yeah.
Being lazy was a contributor, but you know, the food was the issue.
Yeah. Yeah, that's usually yeah, there are a lot of people who do manful yoga and they're like, "Oh, I've done it for 6 months now and I haven't lost weight." I'm like, "Did you change your diet yet?" Like, "No, do I need to change my?" Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a show on TLC. I'm sure you've seen it, the My 650-Pound Life or whatever, where they have the doctor that does a lot of the surgeries, and he's
Yeah.
very real with his patients. And a lot of times someone will come in and say, "Oh, well, I need to exercise a little more. I need to walk around the block." And he says, "You're 600 pounds. Walking around the block is good, but the problem is you're shoving too much food in your face." Like,
Yeah. I think when you look at like the amount of calories that you need in order to sustain like the current weight that you have, if you're morbidly obese, it's kind of like, oh crap, like there's a ton of how am I even getting all that in?
yeah.
Um, yeah, that's a good exercise to do. Well, I want to move into our kind of rapid fire questions here. So you've been awesome so far. So thank you, by the way. What's one habit, belief, or mindset that has helped you the most with your overall health and wellness?
I think just the idea that I'm the only one that can change it. Nobody else is going to do it for me.
Mm,
And the sooner I do it, the sooner I will be better. There's no sense in putting it off. There's certainly times where I would like to, be a little more lazy and chill out a little bit more. And but then you realize no one else is going to lose the weight for you. No one else is going to help you get more fit. No one's going to help you run faster or cycle harder or anything like that. Like it's up to you and you alone. If you're looking for motivation from external sources, there certainly are some, but that is limited. It
Hmm.
I had a friend once who was looking for books to help them start be motivated to get out and walk more. I was like, well, that might help you right now, but what's going to help you when that book is no longer helping?
Mm.
What's going to get you out in a week or two? And sometimes, I kind of had the mantra that about 80% of it really is just getting your shoes on, getting your shoes on and doing something. I think
Hmm.
you mentioned in one of your podcasts, like go to the gym and walk around for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah.
Really, they putting the shoes on, you're most of the way there. The real motivation is getting up, dragging your butt to the treadmill or outside to the track or whatever, putting your shoes on and doing the run.
Yeah. What's one thing that you do for your health that is overlooked by others?
I definitely think hydration is surprisingly important. I think in the past
Mm.
couple of years, I've definitely tried to do a lot better with water. I think taking having motion throughout the day.
Mm.
So part of it was sitting at my desk all day, not moving. I built a
Hmm.
treadmill desk in my office so that I can get up and walk. And typically, last year, my average steps per day was about 15,000 steps per day.
Wow. That's a
Um,
lot.
because a lot of times I'll just get on the treadmill while I'm working and I'm going 2 miles an hour or whatever. I'm
Yeah.
just kind of moseying along, but I'm not sitting there. And I actually have an app on my watch that says, "Hey, it's time to stand up." Like, "Oh yeah, well, I'm in a meeting. I'll get to that in 10 minutes." Or, "Yeah, I'm not doing anything. I'll get up and move
Just
around."
just stand up
And
in the meeting. What are you doing? I'm just being healthy. Just carry on. We're good.
yeah, exactly. But I think movement and hydration. I think those two are definitely big. They say movement is medicine, and
Yeah.
sitting is the new smoking. So
Yep.
between all that, just get out and move.
Yeah. What's the most stressful part of your day-to-day life?
I think like most people, it's probably work. I don't
Mm.
have kids. I don't, I have a dog. I have a greyhound, but she's no stress at all. If anything, she relieves my stress because it's a good
Yeah.
excuse to get out and take her for a walk every now and then.
Hmm.
So really, I think it's probably just work, which is fairly typical and nothing very exciting about it. So,
Yeah. And what's your best piece of advice for men who want to be healthier?
I think kind of what I was alluding to earlier, like nobody's going to do it for you. And I think there's a quote, and I wish I'd written it down, but it's something like, "If you don't do it today, you're going to be that much older when you do it." Um,
Okay.
and so, you know, a lot of people think they're too old or they're too overweight or they are. We only get one life, and we're only here for a set period of time, and the more you enjoy it, the better you feel. I think the better you're going to be. I look forward to being one of those people at marathons when I'm 70 or 80 and everyone says, "Oh man, I can't believe you're still running." I'm like, "Yeah, why not, man? It's great." And maybe I'm walking part of it and maybe I'm not even finishing. Who cares? Like I'm out there
Hmm.
doing it. That's my goal is to stay active and not let what others think of me uh, ruin my good vibes, I guess. My good
Yeah.
feelings.
Yeah. And that's a theme that came up a lot in this is this for you, the idea of groups being helpful as accountability more so than competition.
Yeah, I'm not a competitor. If I was out to finish first place in a run, I would have stopped after my first run and said I never will.
Mm.
When I was first doing half marathon, you get the results and it says, "Oh, you finished in 1500th place." Like, well, dang, that's really defeating. Well, it's
Oh,
not because
that's
for me, that's okay. And over time, I mentioned I've been getting faster, and it used to be not uncommon for me to finish in the final 20% of people in my age group. So I would finish 850th out of 1,000. Hey, I finished ahead of someone. But more and more now, I'm kind of getting to the point. The half marathon I did a couple weeks ago, I was around the top third,
Hmm.
33, 35%. And I've said that I will never stand on a podium unless for some reason they have a group for the very tall. Because by age, it'll probably just never happen. There's always people that are faster than me. There's always people that have more time to devote to fitness, and there's people that are just in better shape than me, and that's okay. I think one of the quotes that I have had as a mantra as a while is competition is the thief of joy, or comparison is the thief of
Comparison
joy.
is that
Yeah, compare.
that thought runs through my mind at least 3 times a week.
Yeah, not competition. Yeah, and you mentioned a lot during your yoga videos as well. Like, don't try to match what I'm doing. Do what you can do. So, I've been doing this for years. You just started. You probably can't do this position the same way I do, but don't let that discourage you. Don't be like, well, I can't do it as well as Dean, so I may as well not even do it. Say, well, I'm doing it better than I did. And there was a post I put up on the group maybe a couple months ago where I was doing squats, and I can't think of the exact name for it, where you're dropping down and lifting back up. Not squats. Uh, I can't think of it. Right. My mind is a blank. But where you're kind of dropping down to one knee, and then you lift that knee back up, and you drop that knee back down, and
Okay.
then you lift it back up,
Oh,
and
split
just kind of.
squats.
Yes, yeah, that's what I
Okay.
was looking
Yeah.
for. And so, at first I would fall over, or I would just not be able to do it, or I'd have to use my hands to help me get up and off. And then at one point I did it, and I was like, I did 10 of them without any assistance. I kept my balance the whole time. It was amazing. And of course I shared it to the group, like, hey, that's someone else probably starting yoga could do that from the start, but
Hmm.
maybe someone else will never be able to do it. And maybe if you stick with it, maybe you'll be able to. And for me, it was very exciting to do it. I think I even did a little like, yeah, I did it. Like, this is
Yeah.
great. And there's little mini achievements like that definitely keep you going throughout the process, that other people may not notice or care about, but and that's what makes the difference, I think.
Yeah. Well said. Well, Matt, I want to say thanks again for coming on and sharing your story. This is great. A lot of really good stuff in here for runners, for people who are losing weight, for people who are trying to figure out how to um, think about all of this stuff. Like you talked about this, personal accountability and relying on yourself, which I think is awesome. So yeah, just thanks for a great conversation. And I appreciate you being part of the Manful Yoga community.
Yeah, I'm sure, speaking for many of the other members out there, can't thank you enough for all that you've done. And I know it's a business, but it's also, um, most of us feel some sort of connection to you, even if we've never talked to you, even if it's just watching you. And I think there's definitely, people's lives are better as a result of Manflow Yoga and as a result of the work you do. So, if they don't say it enough, I will say it. But thank you. It's appreciated a million times over.
Yeah, it's my pleasure for you trusting in me, and also for this the community that we've built, and the community that's been helpful to everybody else in the community. So yeah, thanks again for
Absolutely.
being part of it. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this episode. Matt, thank you again, and I'll see you on the next episode. I hope this inspires you to be a better man.
Thank you.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode. That was Matt, and I hope you enjoyed some of his story. If you're looking to get started with your own story and you haven't already joined the Manful Yoga community, you can sign up at manfulyoga.com/join with a free 7-day trial. If you are already part of our community, I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for contributing, for doing the workouts, for inspiring one another. It's amazing having you guys here. I encourage you to be active both in the community section of our new and improved app and members area, as well as in our private members only Facebook, the Manful Yoga community Facebook group. If you haven't already left a review for this podcast, you can do that wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also watch a video version of this podcast on the Better Man Podcast YouTube channel, as well as in the Manful Yoga app and members area. If you want to get started with a free 7-day challenge, I encourage you to go to manflowyoga.com/7DC to sign up and learn more. All right, guys, thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope it inspires you to be a better man. I'll see you on the next episode.